आजकल की हवाई जंग में ना मामला सिर्फ सबसे तेज फाइटर जेट उड़ाने का नहीं रह गया है। अब आसमान पर राज करने का मतलब है एक तिगड़ी को समझना, फाइटर्स, मिसाइलें और ड्रोन्स। तो चलिए आज इसी तिगड़ी की ताकत को डिकोड करते हैं और देखते हैं कि ये तीनों मिलकर जंग लड़ने के तरीके को कैसे हमेशा के लिए बदल रहे हैं।
और यहीं पर उठता है आज के दौर का सबसे बड़ा सवाल, एक ऐसा सवाल जो दुनिया भर की एयरफोर्स के लिए एक पहेली बन गया है। सवाल ये है कि भाई अगर मिसाइलें और ड्रोन्स इतने सटीक, इतने सस्ते हैं, तो फिर कोई देश मैन पायलट वाले लड़ाकू विमानों पर अरबों डॉलर क्यों खर्च करे? क्या ये समझदारी है?
तो चलिए बात शुरू करते हैं इसी पहेली से। एक तरफ हैं महंगे, बार बार इस्तेमाल होने वाले फाइटर जेट्स और दूसरी तरफ हैं सस्ते, एक बार इस्तेमाल होने वाले स्मार्ट हथियार। ये जो टक्कर है ना, यही हवाई ताकत के भविष्य को तय करने वाली है।
जरा इस नंबर को देखिए, $100 मिलियन से भी ज्यादा। और ये सिर्फ एक 5th जनरेशन फाइटर जेट जैसे कि F-35 की कीमत है। सीधी सी बात है, जब आप एक प्लेन पर इतना पैसा लगा रहे हैं तो सवाल उठना तो लाजमी है कि क्या ये वाकई में हर एक पैसे के लायक है? यही वो कीमत है जो उनकी भूमिका पर सवाल खड़ी करती है।
तो फिर ठीक है, आइए इन तीनों की सीधे सीधे तुलना करके देखते हैं। इनकी कीमत, इनका काम और इनकी प्रिसिजन यानी सटीकता। देखते हैं कि फाइटर जेट्स, मिसाइलें और ड्रोन्स एक दूसरे के सामने कहां टिकते हैं। और यहां पर ना इनके बीच का सबसे बड़ा फर्क सामने आता है, वो है इनके काम करने का तरीका। मिसाइलें और ड्रोन ये एक तरह के स्पेशलिस्ट टूल हैं, मतलब एक खास काम के लिए बने हैं, जैसे हमला करना या निगरानी रखना। वहीं दूसरी तरफ फाइटर जेट्स, ये मल्टी रोल सिस्टम है, एकदम फ्लेक्सिबल। इसको ऐसे समझिए जैसे एक हथौड़े और एक स्विस आर्मी नाइफ में फर्क होता है। एक चीज एक काम के लिए और दूसरी चीज कई कामों के लिए। और अब बात करते हैं पैसे की। ये टेबल ना पूरा हिसाब किताब साफ कर देती है। देखिए, एक क्रूज मिसाइल $1 से $2 मिलियन की है, एक बार फायर किया और खत्म। वहीं एक फाइटर जेट की कीमत $100 मिलियन तक है, लेकिन वो बार बार इस्तेमाल हो सकता है। तो फैसला यह करना होता है कि क्या एक बार का सस्ता हथियार चाहिए या एक महंगा लेकिन लंबा चलने वाला इन्वेस्टमेंट। और यह फैसला पूरी जंग की रणनीति को बदल सकता है। और एक बहुत जरूरी बात, आज के जमाने में ना सटीकता यानी एक्यूरेसी अब कोई बड़ा मुद्दा नहीं रह गया है। ये तीनों ही सिस्टम, चाहे फाइटर हो, मिसाइल हो या ड्रोन, अपने टारगेट को कुछ ही मीटर की प्रिसिजन के साथ हिट कर सकते हैं। तो जब निशाना सबका पक्का है, तो फिर असली फर्क कहाँ है? इसका मतलब है कि अब हमें इनकी दूसरी खूबियों को देखना होगा, ये समझने के लिए कि कौन कितना बेहतर है। तो अगर मामला सटीकता के नहीं है, तो फिर फाइटर जेट्स में ऐसा क्या खास है? चलिए अब उन 5 बड़ी वजहों पर नजर डालते हैं जो फाइटर जेट्स को आज भी इररिप्लेसेबल बनाती हैं। आखिर क्यों उन्हें आज भी आसमान का बादशाह माना जाता है? ये हैं वो खूबियां जो सिर्फ एक पायलट वाले फाइटर में होती हैं। सबसे पहले एयर सुपीरियॉरिटी, मतलब आसमान पर कब्जा करना। ये काम सिर्फ फाइटर्स ही कर सकते हैं। दूसरा, फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी। एक पायलट ऐन मौके पर अपना टारगेट बदल सकता है, मिशन को रोक सकता है, लेकिन एक बार लॉन्च हुई मिसाइल वो वापस नहीं आती। फिर है डिटरेंस, यानी दुश्मन को डराने की ताकत। एक फाइटर स्क्वाड्रन की मौजूदगी जो संदेश देती है, वो छिपी हुई मिसाइलें नहीं दे सकती। और हां, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वॉरफेयर और न्यूक्लियर स्ट्राइक को वापस बुलाने का ऑप्शन। ये सारी चीजें हैं जो एक इंसान, एक पायलट ही कर सकता है, और यही बातें इसे इतना खास बनाती हैं।
लेकिन इसका मतलब ये बिल्कुल नहीं है कि फाइटर्स हर चीज में बेस्ट हैं। अब जरा सिक्के का दूसरा पहलू भी देखते हैं। वो कौन सी जगह हैं जहां मिसाइलें और ड्रोन फाइटर जेट्स को भी पीछे छोड़ देते हैं?
बात करते हैं मिसाइलों की। इनकी सबसे बड़ी ताकत है इनकी स्पीड। कुछ मिसाइलें तो हाइपरसोनिक स्पीड, यानी आवाज से 5 गुना तेज रफ्तार से चलती हैं। एक बार लॉन्च हो गईं तो इन्हें रोकना लगभग नामुमकिन है। इसीलिए जंग की शुरुआत में दुश्मन पर पहला और जोरदार हमला करने के लिए ये सबसे बेहतरीन हथियार हैं। जैसे ब्रह्मोस मिसाइल, जो अपनी स्पीड और ताकत के लिए जानी जाती है। और फिर आते हैं ड्रोन्स। इनकी सबसे बड़ी खूबी, पायलट का कोई रिस्क नहीं। आप इन्हें खतरनाक से खतरनाक इलाकों में भेज सकते हैं। दूसरा, इनकी सहन शक्ति। ये 20 से 40 घंटे तक हवा में रह सकते हैं, मतलब लगातार निगरानी। और क्योंकि ये सस्ते होते हैं, तो आप इनका एक पूरा झुंड, एक स्वाम बनाकर दुश्मन पर छोड़ सकते हैं। जैसा कि बाइकार्टार TB2 ड्रोन ने कई लड़ाइयों में साबित किया है। ये जमीन पर आपकी लगातार नजर बनाए रखते हैं।
तो आखिर में नतीजा क्या निकलता है? नतीजा ये है कि भविष्य किसी एक की जीत का नहीं है। ये फाइटर वर्सेस ड्रोन का मामला नहीं है। भविष्य है इंटीग्रेशन का, मतलब रिप्लेसमेंट नहीं बल्कि टीम वर्क का। और इसी टीम वर्क को कहते हैं मैन्ड-अनमैन्ड टीमिंग। ये एक कमाल का कॉन्सेप्ट है। जरा सोच कर देखिए, एक पायलट अपने फाइटर जेट में बैठा है और वो एक क्वार्टरबैक की तरह काम कर रहा है, और उसके इशारे पर दर्जनों ड्रोन का एक झुंड एक टीम की तरह काम कर रहा है। ये इंसान के दिमाग और AI की ताकत का कॉम्बिनेशन है। और ये कोई साइंस फिक्शन नहीं, ये हवाई जंग का भविष्य है जो अब हकीकत बन रहा है।
इसको समझने का सबसे अच्छा तरीका शायद शतरंज का खेल है। अगर जंग एक शतरंज की बिसात है तो मिसाइलें वो हाथी या ऊंट जैसी शक्तिशाली चालें हैं, ड्रोन वो चतुर प्यादे हैं जो बहुत ज़रूरी होते हैं, और फाइटर जेट वो है रानी, सबसे ताकतवर, सबसे फ्लेक्सिबल और खेज पर हावी होने वाला मोहरा। और हम सब जानते हैं, सिर्फ रानी से शतरंज नहीं जीती जाती। खेल जीतने के लिए हर मोहरे की ज़रूरत होती है।
और यहीं पर आकर हम एक बड़े रणनीतिक सवाल पर रुकते हैं। आने वाले वक्त में देशों को अपना पैसा कहाँ लगाना चाहिए? क्या उन्हें ड्रोन के झुंड बनाने वाली टेक्नोलॉजी पर ज्यादा निवेश करना चाहिए, या फिर अगली पीढ़ी के और भी एडवांस्ड स्टेल्थ फाइटर्स पर? दांव प्यादों के झुंड पर लगाया जाए या फिर रानी पर? ये सवाल आने वाले दशकों की सैन्य रणनीति को तय करेगा।
Welcome to your custom-tailored deep dive. We are thrilled to have you with us today because we are looking at a strategic dilemma that it feels incredibly relevant to the global security landscape right now.
Absolutely.
I want you to imagine the modern battlefield for a second. We live in this era where precision munitions can strike a target from half a world away, right? And unblinking drones can just loiter in the sky for days.
Yeah, the technology is wild.
It is. So, given all that incredible autonomous capability, why on earth do major militaries still spend hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes billions, even on manned fighter jets?
Right.
Things like the F-35, the Rafale, or the Su-30 MKI. Are human pilots fundamentally becoming obsolete?
It's a massive question, and to get you the answer, we're breaking down a highly detailed strategic analysis today titled Fighters, Missiles, and Drones, the Trinity of Modern Air Power.
That's our source material for today.
Exactly. The mission for this deep dive is to really dig into the raw economics, the psychological weight of deterrence, and the AI-driven future of air warfare. Because what surfaces almost immediately in this text is that while aerospace technology evolves at a blinding pace, the fundamental, messy human elements of warfare, psychology, deterrence, and adaptability, are what ultimately drive these multi-billion-dollar decisions.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting with the sheer economics. Because when you look at the budgetary footprint of these different platforms, the financial chasm between them is what usually sparks this whole debate in the first place.
Oh, for sure.
Break down the price tags for us, because the disparity is just wild.
The numbers are staggering when you lay them out side by side. If you look at the data in our source regarding a standard cruise missile, say a Tomahawk, you are looking at a unit cost of roughly $1 to $2 million.
Which is a heavy investment, but it's a one-and-done scenario. You fire it, it detonates, and that line item on the budget is literally vaporized.
Right. Then you scale up to an armed drone. The analysis looks specifically at the melee-class platforms. Those are running anywhere from $5 to $30 million per unit.
So you get some reusability there.
Right. Your permission cost drops significantly over the airframe's life cycle. But then you pivot to a fifth-generation manned fighter jet like the F-35.
Here we go.
You are talking a massive $80 to $100 million up front just to get the airframe on the tarmac.
Wow.
And that doesn't even include the sustainment costs.
Yeah.
The text points out that you are burning $30,000 to $50,000 just for a single flight hour.
See, that flight hour cost is what always gets me. If a Defense Department is signing off on 50 grand an hour, the immediate logical assumption is that the fighter jet must be vastly more accurate than a drone or a missile to justify that premium.
You'd think so.
Right, that you're paying for unparalleled precision.
It is a totally common assumption, but the source actually tears that idea down right out of the gate.
Really?
Yeah. If we look at the accuracy measured as circular error probable, or CEP, across these platforms, the playing field is practically leveled. Ballistic and cruise missiles, utilizing modern GPS and inertial navigation systems, are hitting a CEP of about 5 to 20 meters. That is devastatingly precise for a standoff weapon.
And from what I gather in the text, the drones and the fighters are essentially tied when it comes to dropping ordnance.
They are. Whether you have an armed drone dropping laser-guided munitions or a fighter jet dropping GPS-guided bombs, both are boasting an incredibly tight 1 to 5 meter CEP.
So basically pinpoint accuracy.
Exactly. You can put a munition through a specific window using any of the three. So for the military strategists writing these checks, accuracy alone is simply not the deciding factor anymore.
So if it isn't accuracy, what is it? The author uses a really brilliant chess analogy to help you visualize how these distinct platforms actually complement each other on the battle space.
It's a great way to look at it.
Think of the theater of war as a chessboard. Missiles are your powerful moves, fast, devastating, but highly constrained in their scope and trajectory. Drones act as your smart pawns, expendable, strategic, setting up the board, absorbing risk. But the fighter jet. The fighter jet is the queen. It is supremely flexible, dynamic, and can dominate any vector.
That chess analogy is the perfect lens for examining what the author calls the 5 pillars of the fighter jet. These are the core reasons why the manned fighter remains the absolute pinnacle of air power doctrine.
What's the first one?
The first pillar, and arguably the bedrock of the entire strategy, is air superiority. We often forget a basic structural limitation of a missile it cannot patrol.
Right, it just flies to a point.
Exactly. A cruise missile cannot intercept an enemy bogey, it cannot engage in a dynamic dogfight, and it certainly cannot enforce a no-fly zone.
But let me play devil's advocate here. If I have a massive arsenal of surface-to-air missiles, a totally integrated air defense system, why do I need a fighter jet to patrol? Can't my SAM sites enforce that no-fly zone from the ground?
A SAM site can deny airspace, but it cannot actively control and project power through it. The text points to recent events to prove this, specifically highlighting the Russia-Ukraine war.
That makes sense as a modern example.
When neither side can establish true air superiority using their fighter fleets, the airspace becomes a denied zone, and the conflict devolves into a grueling, static artillery war on the ground.
So the whole board gets locked up.
Without the queen on the board holding the center, your pawns and your powerful moves become incredibly vulnerable. You need the fighter to actively hunt, clear the skies, and protect the airspace so your other assets can operate.
That makes a lot of sense. Which leads us to the second pillar, human judgment. This is where the sheer adaptability of a human brain in the cockpit becomes invaluable. Think about the kill chain of a standoff weapon. Once a missile is fired, it is irreversible.
It's gone.
The launch sequence is executed, and that munition is going to its programmed coordinates. But a pilot can reevaluate the battle space in real time.
What's fascinating here is the concept of tactical aborts. The battle space is fluid, intelligence changes in seconds. A pilot can fly all the way to a target, visually identify that a civilian convoy has suddenly moved into the blast radius, and instantly abort the strike.
They can just wave off.
Right. They can change targets mid-maneuver to avoid civilian collateral damage.
But hold on, drones have incredibly high-resolution optics. A drone operator sitting in a trailer in Nevada can see that civilian convoy too.
They can, but they are subject to bandwidth limitations, satellite latency, and a heavily restricted field of view. A pilot in a canopy has unparalleled situational awareness. They aren't looking through a soda straw.
It's a visceral experience for them.
That real-time, holistic, ethical adaptability is something a remote data link or a silicon chip simply cannot match right now. And that visible human presence ties directly into the third pillar.
Which is?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to talk about the psychology of deterrence.
Oh, right, the psychological weight of the asset. Imagine a ballistic missile hidden in an underground reinforced silo. It is lethal, obviously, but it is invisible. It doesn't inspire a visceral, daily reaction from an adversary. Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly the point the author makes. But a visible fighter jet squadron, that is a tangible, roaring projection of power. When a squadron of fighters flies a patrol near a contested border, it is a daily, visible deterrent against escalation.
You can physically see the threat.
It signals a highly capable, human-driven presence. An adversary can literally see the queen on the board. A hidden silo simply doesn't command that same psychological real estate.
It's the ultimate geopolitical flex. And while those jets are up there projecting that power, they are also heavily engaged in the fourth pillar, which I found totally engrossing in the text electronic warfare.
EW is huge.
The source details a very specific capability here, highlighting platforms like the EA-18G Growler. Now, we aren't just talking about dropping kinetic bombs anymore. The primary weapon here is the electromagnetic spectrum.
This is a crucial distinction. A missile is a kinetic tool, but a specialized EW fighter is out there actively scrambling the enemy's nervous system. It is dynamically hunting for enemy radar emissions, gathering intelligence, and suppressing defenses.
Doing all that on the fly.
You have a human operator actively reading the electromagnetic environment and adapting their jamming frequencies in real time while moving at Mach 1. A standoff missile simply cannot do that.
And then there's the fifth pillar. This is the one that really underscores the gravity of what these pilots do: nuclear recall.
The highest stakes possible.
When a military is dealing with a nuclear payload, you want the ultimate fail-safe architecture. The source calls this reversible deterrence.
If tensions reach a boiling point, a nuclear-armed fighter jet can be scrambled. It can fly directly toward enemy airspace, signaling undeniable intent. But, and this is the highest stakes reason of all, it can be recalled right up until the final moments of the flight.
You can call them off.
A nuclear-tipped ICBM offers no such luxury. The geopolitical stakes are simply too high not to have a human being in the loop with the physical ability to turn the aircraft around.
It is a chilling reality to think about, but it makes absolute strategic sense why you need a pilot physically in that seat. Now, to see how all these pillars actually support a real-world military doctrine, the source provides a fascinating geopolitical laboratory: the strategic environment of India.
It's a perfect case study.
And I want to pause here for a second because I want to be explicitly clear to our listener. We are neutrally exploring this strategic scenario outlined in the source text without taking any political sides. We are just looking at the strategic arithmetic.
Absolutely. We are maintaining strict impartiality here. We're just looking at the math and the geography.
Right. So the text outlines a very specific two-front challenge for India. On one border, you have China actively fielding a large fleet of J-20 fifth-generation stealth fighters, backed by heavily integrated air defenses.
A very advanced peer threat.
And on the other border, you have Pakistan, which relies heavily on tactical missile deployment and increasingly advanced drone warfare.
So you are balancing fifth-gen stealth on one side and asymmetric drone and tactical missile threats on the other. This perfectly illustrates the budget versus value debate we were just talking about.
Break down the actual procurement math here, as highlighted in the text.
The author highlights the acquisition of a 36-jet Rafale squadron. The total cost for that procurement was over 60,000 crore rupees.
Which is roughly $8 or $9 billion.
Yes, and that is an all-encompassing figure. But the text also points out that the life cycle cost over their 30 to 40-year lifespan will be massive.
It's a multi-decade financial commitment.
It is. Now, the author contrasts that fighter procurement with a pure missile stockpile approach. They look at the BrahMos missile, a highly formidable supersonic cruise missile.
Extremely fast.
A stockpile of 1,000 of those fast, devastating BrahMos missiles costs about half of the Rafale deal, somewhere around 25 to 35,000 crore rupees.
Honestly, if I'm looking purely at the math, and I see I can get 1,000 supersonic precision strikes for half the price of 36 jets, I'm taking the missiles. You get massive kinetic impact, zero risk to a human pilot, and you save billions. Why wouldn't a military just buy the 1,000 missiles?
I want you to consider the application of these tools. It comes down to sustained application versus a single shock. Missiles are great for a fast, one-time shock attack.
A quick strike.
Exactly. But fighters are needed for continuous dominance. Consider high-altitude mountain warfare, like in the Ladakh region mentioned in the text.
You can't just fire one missile and claim a mountain range.
Far from it. Militaries need quick reaction alerts, QRAs. You need the ability to scramble fully armed jets in a matter of minutes, to provide continuous air cover over your troops.
Just loitering and protecting.
You need them to perform persistent surveillance and actively defend the airspace. A BrahMos is used exactly once.
So missiles are cheaper in the short term, but fighters are needed for sustained power projection.
Which leads to the blended doctrine the source identifies. It's not about choosing one or the other. The ideal doctrine derived from the text calls for a massive drone fleet, expanded missiles, an AI network, and critically, a minimum of 30 to 35 fighter squadrons.
And that includes indigenous platforms like the HALAMCA, right?
Yes, that's explicitly noted as part of the future strategy.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the moment we mention an integrated AI network, we have to look at the 20-year horizon. The author projects forward to 2045.
The future of air combat.
The huge question is, will autonomous AI drones replace human pilots? Because the perks of unmanned platforms are undeniable. Look at the operational record of the Bayraktar TB2.
A total game changer.
You have zero risk to a pilot, you can coordinate massive swarm attacks, and you get a mind-boggling 20 to 40 hours of endurance. A human pilot physically cannot fly a high-G fighter jet for 2 days straight.
The drone advantage is real. The endurance and swarm capabilities are massive. But will AI completely replace the pilot by 2045? The analysis strongly argues no. The why behind that is crucial. AI won't fly solo anytime soon because it struggles profoundly with ethical uncertainties. It lacks the nuance to manage complex political escalation.
Because an algorithm is just looking for a signature, right?
Exactly. But beyond the ethical limitations, there is a massive tactical vulnerabilities electronic warfare. AI can be jammed, spoofed, or hacked.
That's terrifying.
It simply cannot entrust your most vital air superiority missions to a system that an adversary could potentially sever with a cyber attack. So the human failsafe is mandatory.
Which means the actual future of air combat, as the author envisions it, is integration. The doctrine is known as Manned-Unmanned Teaming.
MUMT.
We see this with programs like the NGAD platform and the HALAMCA. They aren't eliminating the pilot. Instead, they will feature one manned fighter acting as a command center for 4 to 6 AI-controlled drone wingmen.
It is a brilliant tactical synergy. The human pilot remains safely outside the highest-risk kill zones. Meanwhile, they are wirelessly commanding the drone swarm to push forward into the teeth of the enemy's air defenses.
So you get the endurance and expendability of the drones tethered to a human brain.
Securely tethered to the ethical judgment and adaptability of a human pilot.
So what does this all mean? If we synthesize the core arguments from this deep dive for you, the listener, the truth becomes incredibly clear. A pure missile strategy is inflexible.
Highly inflexible.
A pure drone strategy is highly vulnerable. And a pure fighter strategy is just too expensive. The ultimate power lies in integrating all three.
It is a delicate, highly complex balance. But as we accelerate toward that future, this raises an important question, something I'd urge you to think about.
What's that?
If the military of 2045 relies entirely on a human pilot, wirelessly commanding a swarm of AI drone wingmen, what happens to accountability if that communication link is severed or hacked by an adversary?
Oh, wow.
If an autonomous swarm is suddenly cut off from its human ethical compass in crowded airspace, who is responsible for the split-second decisions it makes next? It's something to think about the next time you hear a jet overhead.
That is a phenomenal point to end on. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.